Some mistakes hurt, but love still heals. Part 1. The First Glance. Welcome to Midnight Musings Stories, where emotions speak in whispers and love lingers through every heartbeat. Tonight, let's begin a story that reminds us how a single moment can change everything. The first snow of the season had started to fall just as I stepped out of my little cabin. The air was crisp, the kind that nipped at your cheeks and made your breath swirl like smoke. I tugged my scarf a little tighter and smiled to myself, thinking how beautiful everything looked under that soft white dusting. Stowe had always felt like a place pulled from a storybook, especially in winter. Quaint little shops, the scent of cinnamon wafting from bakeries, twinkling lights wrapped around lampposts. Everything about it soothed something quiet inside me. It was a small town where people still said hello on the street, where a warm fire and a cup of cider could erase 1,000 troubles. I had moved here 2 years ago, escaping the noise and rush of the city. Teaching elementary school in a town, like this felt like finding a missing piece of my soul. But that night, that particular evening in early December, something felt different. The holiday music drifting from the town square, the way the snowflakes clung to my lashes, even the way my fingers curled around the mug of spiced cider I held once I stepped into the cozy warmth of McKinley's pub. Everything felt like it was leading to something I couldn't name yet. The pub was crowded that night, alive with laughter and music. A local band played soft jazz by the fireplace, their melodies blending seamlessly with the hum of conversation. I found a small corner by the window, wrapped my fingers around my drink, and let the warmth seep in. That's when I saw him. He was standing near the band, talking with a few other men, all construction workers from the looks of them. But he stood out. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a flannel shirt rolled to his elbows. His boots looked worn, like they'd seen every mile of every trail around here. And his hands, large, calloused, strong, rested casually in his pockets as he laughed at something one of the others said. But it wasn't his build or his clothes that caught me. It was his smile. A smile so bright, so genuine, it felt like sunlight in a room filled with firelight. It lit up his whole face, his eyes crinkling at the corners, his head tilted back, unguarded and completely at ease. Something about that smile made my heart stir, made my breath hitch in a way I hadn't felt in a very long time. Our eyes met, just for a moment, and I swear, time slowed. I looked away immediately, cheeks flushing, heart pounding in my chest. Silly, I thought, just a stranger. Probably didn't even notice you. I focused on my drink, watching the cinnamon stick float lazily in the amber liquid. But then, a shadow fell across my table. Care to dance? I looked up, startled. It was him. He was smiling that same warm smile, his hand extended. His voice was deep and smooth, laced with a faint southern drawl that sent a little thrill down my spine. I'm not really a good dancer, I stammered. He chuckled, not in a mocking way, but with a softness that made me feel safe. Neither am I, he said, but I think we'll manage. Before I could come up with another excuse, his hand was already gently wrapping around mine, guiding me to the small dance floor near the band. The music had just changed, a slow, dreamy tune that wrapped around us like velvet. Moon River. He placed one hand on my waist, the other holding mine. Our bodies moved slowly, swaying with the rhythm. His touch was firm, but not forceful. His steps sure and easy, guiding me effortlessly. I felt my nervousness melt away with every beat. We talked as we danced. Simple things at first, names, where we were from, what brought us to Stowe. His name was Thomas. He had just moved here from Georgia to work on a new inn being built near the ski resort. He'd been a carpenter since he was 16, learning the trade from his father. "I love the smell of wood," he said, smiling down at me. "There's something honest about it, real, like it remembers every hand that touched it." I told him about teaching, about how I'd always known that's what I wanted to do since I was a little girl, lining up my teddy bears like students. He listened, really listened, nodding thoughtfully, asking questions that made me feel seen. It had been so long since I'd felt this understood, this comfortable in someone's presence, like I didn't have to try to be charming or interesting. Like I could just be myself, the girl who loved books, who believed in quiet love stories and second chances. We danced until the song faded, and even then, we stood there for a moment longer, still holding each other, not ready to break whatever. Magic had settled between us. "Would you like to sit with me?" he asked softly. I nodded, and we returned to my little table by the window. Conversation flowed easily, about childhood memories, favorite books, places we wanted to travel. I learned he had a soft spot for classic literature and old movies, that he played guitar in his spare time, that he made the best grilled cheese sandwiches anyone had ever tasted. "I'll have to test that theory," I teased. He grinned. Challenge accepted. Hours passed unnoticed. The crowd began to thin. The music grew quieter, but we stayed. Two strangers slowly becoming something more. Every smile, every glance, every brush of his fingers across mine sent tiny sparks through my chest, and then, just as I was about to leave, he gently reached for my coat. "Let me walk you home." We stepped outside, the snow falling thicker now, the world hushed and glistening under the moonlight. He offered me his arm, and I slipped mine through his. We walked slowly, talking, laughing softly, our footsteps crunching on the snow-covered path. When we reached my door, I turned to thank him, but the words caught in my throat. He leaned in, close enough that I could feel the warmth of his breath. "I'm really glad I came to McKinley's tonight," he whispered. "Me too," I said, barely more than a breath. He smiled, then brushed a kiss to my cheek, soft, warm, lingering just long enough to make my heart race. Then he stepped back. "Good night, schoolteacher." "Good night, carpenter." And just like that, he turned and walked away, leaving footprints in the snow and a fire quietly kindling in my chest. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment, every word, every smile. Something inside me whispered that this wasn't just a fleeting night, that maybe, just maybe, something had begun, something real. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who still believes in slow dances and warm smiles. Your support means everything to us. And remember, some mistakes hurt, but love still heals. See you in part 2, where every heartbeat brings them closer and deeper into a love they never expected.